I feel the need for a pretty underwhelming film, to be honest. Okay, so Top Gun. Yeah, it's another one of those films, kind of like Cool Runnings. It's not going to win any Oscars. It's not going to appear on any greatest films list of all time. But there's a lot to like about it. There's a lot of stuff going for it. There's a lot of how can I put this? Cool stuff, I suppose is the best word I can use. It's just one of those films that you just have to see, and people say, "Oh, you remember that bit in Top Gun?" It has all of those sort of memorable elements. It's just overall just a pretty underwhelming film. It's not like Cool Runnings in that you can't not like it. It's not like no end of enjoyment just watching it. It's probably 2/3 of just enjoyable stuff in it, and the other third is just bleh, nothingness. There's too much talking. There's too complex a plot really for a film like this. And there's a lot of pointless scenes in there. But anyway, just quickly going to go through the stuff that I like. I like the flying scenes. I find them really gripping. I think they're some of the best action scenes I've ever seen in a film. And probably some of the most original action scenes I've ever seen in a film. Because, you don't see fighter jets fighting in many action films, Or if you do see it, you don't see them multiple times, doing different things and different kind of things going on. And you certainly don't see it with dialogue. I like Maverick as a character. This is a reasonable performance from Tom Cruise. I'm not overly keen on Tom Cruise, but he gives a good performance in this. I like his character. I'm not entirely sure I really like anything that he actually does, though. There's a lot of kind of stuff in this that is just him going along with what he's being told to do, and then deliberately disobeying just to show that he's a rebel. I didn't understand the volleyball scene. I've heard a few rumours about how this is a gay film, and that does seem to sort of be the main source of that speculation. Although there's also a love story in this film, so I don't quite follow how that can make it a gay film, because Maverick is quite obviously not gay, but certainly his relationship with Goose does sort of have gay elements to it. I do like his relationship with Goose, though. It's quite a strong kind of friendship that the two of them have. I'm kind of sad that Goose had to die at quite such an early stage in the film. I was kind of enjoying the two of them in there. And, Goose dying, it doesn't really do anything to the story. It doesn't really affect anything. It doesn't really have any kind of major impact. The thing that has kind of major impact for me, I think, is just sort of the way that Maverick is killed, sort of metaphorically speaking, or, simulated being killed when he goes after Viper and ends up failing the mock mission, whatever you want to call it. Goose dying, he doesn't really sort of learn anything about that. He just sort of grieves for a bit and then sort of gets on with his life. Goose dying doesn't really do anything for the story, as far as I can tell. He's just sort of cleared of any kind of responsibility. I've actually heard a few people sort of speculate, what is it with, Ice is basically responsible for Goose's death, and yet, Maverick and Ice sort of are good friends by the end. And, they're all like, oh, wow, great job covering me, you can be my wingman anytime, and then they hug it. There's a lot of guys hugging in this film, actually. Maybe that's kind of the source of the speculation about this being a gay film. Maybe that's part of it as well. The thing I would say about, Ice maybe being responsible for Goose's death, Maverick is kind of just wanting to forget about it by that point. He kind of thinks for a while it actually might have been kind of his fault, in a way, and he just wanted to put it behind him. He doesn't want to hold a grudge. And I don't really understand why anyone would think that Maverick would want to hold a grudge against Ice for possibly causing Goose's death. I mean, he's probably no more responsible really than Maverick, just, that sort of spur of the moment, not really sure what was going to happen, slight moment of incompetence. I don't really see how Ice is any more responsible for Goose's death than Maverick is, really. It's just, one of those things. It's a freak accident. But I actually do kind of like it when characters don't hold a grudge against other characters, for an abundance of the film, because that's actually kind of cliched, and that's kind of not actually a very strong character trait to just hold a grudge against someone. It's something that actually makes me dislike characters quite a lot in films, because it's holding on to some moment that happened earlier in the film that really you just want to move on from as quickly as possible. Obviously, with something like a death, it is kind of a difficult thing to move on from particularly quickly, and they acknowledge Goose's death and then they move on. So I don't agree with that kind of criticism that people have for the film. The real criticism that I would have for this film is I think there's too many scenes of like heavy dialogue. Large parts of this film actually kind of bore me, to be honest. There's too much sort of back and forth dialogue talking. A lot of it doesn't really mean too much. There's probably too many subplots as well. You've got Maverick and Goose. You've got Ice and whoever the hell his co-pilot was, their kind of rivalry. You've got the woman that Maverick's trying to get with. You've got Goose and his girlfriend and what's going on between them. Then, of course, you've got Goose's death. And then you've got sort of maybe the main focus of the plot, which is, Maverick maybe learning about teamwork and how, he has to sort of stick with the guy he's covering. I don't like the way that Goose is killed during a simulated mission as well. It doesn't really make much sense to me that, obviously safety would be the main priority in a situation like that, and yet someone actually dies. I don't understand how that could happen. Well, that sort of brings me on to another complaint I would have about this film. There's only one real sort of actual war scene in this film, right at the end. All the rest are just, the simulated fights, where there's nothing really at stake. Basically, being fighter pilots in this film is portrayed as being some kind of competitive sport. Who's going to be the winner of Top Gun, essentially, and in the end, actually, Ice basically wins. I suppose maybe in a sense, maybe that kind of shows that winning isn't everything, kind of thing. And certainly in a situation like this, it's not really about being the best. It's about doing what you can for your country. Because obviously, the reason why these fighter pilots are doing what they do is for a much more serious reason than it just being some kind of competitive sport. But yeah, there is a lot to like about this film. There's just a lot of stuff in it that I would want to fast forward through, to be honest. This is kind of like 2/3 of the kind of Cool Runnings type enjoyment out of it. How can you not love this? It's not going to win any Oscars, but how can you not love it? And then 1/3, God, this is unbearable. God, why am I watching this? God, this is bad. Again, like Cool Runnings, this is probably kind of pointless to give me a rating, but this isn't a you must absolutely see this film kind of how can you not love it kind of film. This is more a kind of if you have the time, go and see it kind of how can you not like it. Didn't really do it for me in the way it seems to do for a lot of people. This is a kind of cool film that a lot of people have seen. No one is considering it as being one of the greatest films of all time, but it is a kind of film that a lot of people have seen and a lot of people love to talk about, and it feeds a lot of people's nostalgia. It didn't quite hit that for me like Cool Runnings did, but there is a lot in this film that did make me happy and satisfied that I had seen it. So yeah, if you've got the time, it probably is worth checking out this film. There's a lot to like in it. Okay, well, that is it. I will see you for another review soon.